What happens when the galaxy's most feared warrior race encounters humanity for the first time? What terror could possibly shake beings who have conquered 1,000 worlds and made entire civilizations kneel in submission? Commander Zethkar of the Dominion fleet believed he knew everything about fear. His people, the Vorthak, had been the apex predators of the galaxy for 3 millennia. Their ships were legends of destruction. Their warriors were unstoppable forces of nature. They had never met a species that could stand against them, until they found Earth. This is not just another story of alien invasion. This is the terrifying account of what happens when unstoppable force meets immovable will. When calculated warfare encounters pure, unhinged human determination. When the hunters become the hunted, and the predators discover that in the vast cosmos there exists something far more dangerous than any weapon or technology they could imagine. The human spirit. What you're about to read will challenge everything you think you know about strength, courage, and what it truly means to fight for survival. Through the eyes of a Dominion commander, you'll witness the birth of a legend that will echo through the stars for generations to come. Prepare yourself for a journey into the heart of what makes humanity the most terrifying force the universe has ever encountered. Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of the Dominion dreadnought Void Reaper, his 4 arms crossed behind his back as he gazed at the blue-green world spinning slowly before them. The planet looked peaceful, almost innocent, with its white clouds swirling over vast oceans and brown-green continents. The scanner readings showed a population of roughly 7 billion beings scattered across the surface. Another primitive world, Subcommander Veldaz reported from his station. Their technology appears to be several centuries behind our own. Crude chemical rockets, basic electromagnetic communications, and what appears to be nuclear fission capabilities. Zethkar's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his people. The Vorthak had been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. They had perfected the art of subjugation, reducing entire civilizations to mere resource providers for the Dominion. This world, which the inhabitants called Earth, would be no different. Any signs of unified planetary defense? Zethkar asked, his deep voice resonating through the bridge's bioacoustic systems. Negative, Commander. The planet appears to be divided into multiple political entities. Our linguistic AI has identified over 6,000 distinct languages and nearly 200 separate nation-states. They appear to be constantly engaged in small-scale conflicts with each other. Perfect. Divided civilizations were always easier to conquer. Zethkar had seen this pattern countless times before. A species that couldn't unite against external threats rarely posed any significant challenge to the Dominion fleet. Begin standard conquest protocol, he ordered. Deploy observation drones to major population centers. I want complete intelligence on their military capabilities, political structures, and resource distribution within the rotation cycle. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Banks of crystalline displays flickered to life, showing real-time feeds from hundreds of microscopic drones as they descended through Earth's atmosphere. The images that appeared on the screens showed sprawling cities, vast agricultural areas, and what appeared to be military installations scattered across the planet's surface. Zethkar studied the feeds with growing confidence. The humans, as they called themselves, possessed no space-based defenses. Their most advanced aircraft appeared to be primitive jet-powered vehicles that would be helpless against Dominion plasma weaponry. Their ground forces carried kinetic projectile weapons that wouldn't even scratch Vorthak combat armor. Commander, Tactical Officer Kornath called out, "We're detecting some unusual readings from one of the northern continents." Zethkar turned to examine the new data. The drones had discovered several sites that registered massive electromagnetic signatures. Deep underground facilities connected by a network of hardened communication lines. Nuclear weapons storage? He asked. Possible, but the energy patterns are different. These sites appear to be command and control centers of some kind. Highly fortified and deeply buried. Zethkar dismissed the information with a wave of one of his lower arms. Irrelevant. Nuclear weapons are crude tools. Our shields can deflect anything these primitives might launch at us. Over the next several hours, the intelligence picture became clearer. Humanity was indeed divided, but they possessed a surprising level of technological sophistication for such a young species. They had developed global communication networks, sophisticated computing systems, and had even managed to place artificial satellites in orbit around their world. Impressive for primitives, Veldaz admitted, reviewing the data streams. They've achieved all of this in less than a century. Most species take several times that long to develop comparable technology. Speed of development is irrelevant, Zethkar replied. What matters is current capability, and they're still centuries behind us. Prepare the subjugation fleet. 3 destroyer squadrons should be more than sufficient. But as he gave the order, something nagged at the back of his mind. In all his years of conquest, he had learned to trust his instincts. The humans were displaying patterns that didn't quite fit the standard primitive civilization model. Their technology was advancing too rapidly, their infrastructure was too resilient, and their political divisions seemed almost deliberately structured to prevent any single point of failure. Commander, Communications Officer HFY interrupted his thoughts. We're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet's surface. It appears they've detected our presence. Zethkar felt a moment of surprise. Most primitive species never noticed the Dominion observation drones until it was far too late. What kind of transmissions? Multiple languages, but our AI is beginning to translate. They appear to be attempts at peaceful communication. Mathematical sequences, star charts, basic pictographs indicating peaceful intent. How they detect us? Unknown, Commander. Our stealth technology should be invisible to their sensors. Zethkar studied the communication attempts with growing interest. The humans had somehow detected Dominion technology that was designed to be undetectable by species at their technological level. Either they had help from another spacefaring race, or their capabilities were more advanced than initial scans had indicated. Maintain observation protocol, he decided. Do not respond to their communications yet. I want to understand exactly what we're dealing with before we reveal ourselves. The next several hours brought a steady stream of surprises. Human communication networks showed unprecedented coordination despite their political divisions. Military forces around the globe had quietly shifted to higher alert levels without any obvious central command structure. Most disturbing of all, several of their space-based facilities had begun what appeared to be defensive preparations. Commander, Korneth reported with barely concealed unease. We're detecting unusual energy buildups at several locations across the planet. Elaborate. The humans appear to be powering up systems we didn't know they possessed. Deep space detection arrays, high-energy particle accelerators, and what looks like orbital weapons platforms disguised as civilian satellites. Zethkar felt his confidence waver for the first time in decades. How many weapons platforms? Initial count shows at least 200 confirmed, with possibly twice that number still hidden. Commander, these aren't primitive kinetic weapons. We're detecting plasma containment fields and what appears to be directed energy focusing arrays. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans had been deliberately hiding their true capabilities. Their divided political structure wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a security feature designed to prevent any single point of failure from compromising their planetary defenses. Sir, HFY spoke up hesitantly. We're receiving another transmission. This one appears to be directed specifically at our position. On speaker, a clear voice filled the bridge, speaking in what the AI identified as English. The words were calm, measured, and utterly terrifying in their implications. Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of Earth Defense Command. We are aware of your presence in our system and your observation activities over the past 18 hours. We do not wish conflict, but we are prepared for it. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. You have 1 hour to respond before we consider your presence a hostile act. Zethkar stared at the communication display in stunned silence. Not only had the humans detected the Void Reaper despite its advanced stealth systems, but they had pinpointed its exact location and determined the duration of its surveillance activities. More alarming still, they spoke with the confidence of a species that believed it could back up its threats. "Commander," Veldaz whispered, "how did they know we've been observing for exactly 18 hours? "Unknown," Zethkar replied, his voice tight with growing concern. "Scan the planet again. Full spectrum analysis. I want to know what we missed." The new scans revealed a shocking truth. What they had initially interpreted as a primitive, divided world was actually an incredibly sophisticated defense network. The political divisions were real, but underneath them lay a unified command structure designed to activate only in response to external threats. The humans hadn't just hidden weapons platforms. They had turned their entire civilization into a defensive system. Underground facilities were connected by quantum communication networks that the Dominion scanners had missed entirely. Civilian infrastructure doubled as military assets. Even their commercial satellites carried sensor packages that had been mapping Dominion positions from the moment they entered the system. "Commander," Korneth's voice cracked slightly. "The energy readings from those underground facilities are increasing exponentially. Whatever they're powering up, it's drawing enormous amounts of energy." Before Zethkar could respond, every display on the bridge flickered. When they stabilized, they showed not the usual tactical readouts, but a human face. A woman with graying hair and hard eyes stared directly at them through their own secured communication systems. "Commander Zethkar of the Vorthak Dominion vessel Void Reaper," Admiral Chen said, her voice cutting through the bridge like a blade. "Yes, we know who you are. We know about your people's history of conquest. We know about the 17 civilizations you've subjugated in the past century alone. We know everything about you." The silence on the bridge was absolute. Every Vorthak stared at the screen in shock. The humans had not only penetrated their communication systems, but had accessed their military records and personal files. "Your hour is now 53 minutes, Admiral Chen continued. "We strongly recommend you use that time to withdraw from our system. Earth is not another primitive world for your empire to conquer. We are something your people have never encountered before. We are a species that has spent its entire existence fighting itself, and we have become very, very good at it." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Zethkar realized that for the first time in his military career, he was genuinely afraid. Not of weapons or superior technology, but of the calm certainty in that human's voice. Admiral Chen hadn't spoken like someone bluffing or desperate. She had spoken like someone who knew exactly what she was capable of and was giving him one chance to avoid finding out firsthand. "Commander," Veldaz asked quietly, "what are your orders?" Zethkar stared at the tactical display, weighing his options. Every instinct told him to withdraw and report back to Dominion Command. But 3,000 years of Vorthak military doctrine demanded that he test these humans' capabilities. The Dominion had never retreated from a primitive world, and his own career would be over if he returned without at least attempting conquest. "Signal the destroyer squadrons," he decided. "We proceed with subjugation protocol, but maintain maximum defensive readiness. These humans are not what they appear to be." As the order went out, Zethkar couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made the worst decision of his life. The humans' confident demeanor suggested they had been preparing for this exact scenario for much longer than their technological timeline should have allowed. Somehow, they had known the Dominion was coming. The question that terrified him most was simple. If they had been preparing, what exactly had they prepared? The Dominion destroyer squadrons materialized out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their sleek hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun. 12 ships in total, each one capable of reducing a continent to ash within hours. Zethkar watched from the bridge of the Void Reaper as his fleet took position around the human homeworld. "All squadrons report ready for engagement," Tactical Officer Korneth announced. "Plasma batteries charged, shields at maximum, fighter squadrons standing by." Zitkar nodding grimly. Despite his growing unease about these humans, military protocol demanded a show of force. The Dominion's reputation was built on swift, overwhelming displays of superior firepower that crushed resistance before it could properly form. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main display almost immediately, as if she had been waiting for his call. Her expression remained calm, but Zethkar noticed something unsettling in her eyes. She looked almost disappointed. "Commander Zethkar," she said softly, "I see you've decided to ignore our warning." "Admiral Chen," Zethkar replied, drawing himself to his full imposing height, "I am commander of the 3rd Subjugation Fleet of the Vorthak Dominion. By the authority vested in me by the Eternal Council, I claim this system and all its resources for the Dominion. Your species will submit to Vorthak rule or face the consequences." Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, her gaze never wavering from his. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that sent chills through every Vorthak on the bridge. "Commander, you have no idea what you're asking for. In the past 3,000 years, your people have conquered 17 civilizations. In that same time period, we humans have fought over 40,000 wars against ourselves. We have perfected the art of killing, not across the galaxy, but on a single world. We know violence in ways your people could never imagine." She paused, and, for a moment, Zethkar saw something in her expression that made his blood run cold. It wasn't fear or anger. It was pity. "Your hour expired 11 minutes ago," she continued. "We tried to give you a chance to leave with your dignity intact. Since you've chosen otherwise, you're about to learn why Earth has never been conquered by anyone, including ourselves." The transmission ended abruptly, and Zethkar felt a moment of uncertainty. The human's words had carried absolute conviction, but surely they were just sophisticated psychological warfare. No primitive species could pose a real threat to Dominion battle fleets. "All squadrons begin orbital bombardment of major population centers," he commanded. "Standard suppression pattern. Target their government facilities and military installations first." The destroyer squadrons moved into attack position, their weapons systems powering up with the familiar whine of charging plasma batteries. Zethkar had witnessed this sight hundreds of times before. The brilliant flash of plasma weapons reducing cities to glass, the shock and terror on the faces of conquered populations, the inevitable surrender that followed within hours. Weapons charged and locked on target, Korneth reported. Beginning bombardment in 3, 2, 1. The plasma beams lanced down toward Earth's surface, brilliant streams of contained energy that should have vaporized everything they touched. Instead, they struck shimmering barriers that materialized directly in their path. The energy dissipated harmlessly against what appeared to be planet-wide shield generators. Impossible, velto breted. No civilization at their technological level should possess planetary shield technology. Before Zethkar could respond, space around the Dominion fleet erupted in light. Hundreds of energy beams stabbed upward from Earth's surface. Not the crude kinetic weapons they had expected, but sophisticated plasma cannons that matched or exceeded Dominion technology. The destroyer Talon of Conquest took a direct hit to its primary reactor and exploded in a brilliant fireball that illuminated the entire fleet. "Evasive maneuvers," Zethkar shouted, but it was too late. Earth's hidden weapons platforms had achieved perfect target locks on every ship in his fleet simultaneously. Another destroyer, the Bone Crusher, shuddered under multiple impacts as its shields failed catastrophically. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" Korneth demanded, his voice tight with panic. The answer came in the form of something Zethkar had never seen before. Small craft were launching from Earth's surface, moving at impossible speeds and following flight paths that defied conventional physics. They weren't using conventional propulsion at all, but some kind of gravitational manipulation technology that allowed them to accelerate and turn in ways that should have liquefied any organic pilot. "Incoming fighters," the sensor officer announced unnecessarily. Everyone on the bridge could see them now, swarms of sleek craft that moved like living things through the void. The Dominion destroyers launched their own fighter squadrons, confident that their superior numbers would overwhelm the primitive human craft. The result was a massacre, but not the one Zethkar had expected. Human fighters tore through Dominion formations like predators among prey. Their weapons were smaller, but somehow more effective, penetrating Vorthack shields with surgical precision. Commander, Communications Officer HFY reported with barely controlled terror. I'm receiving combat reports from squadron leaders. They're saying the human pilots are anticipating their moves before they make them. Zethkar watched in horror as his elite fighter squadrons were systematically annihilated. The humans weren't just outflying his pilots. They were predicting their tactics with uncanny accuracy. It was as if they could see into the future or read Vorthack minds. Sir, Vel'Daz called out, I'm detecting massive energy buildups from multiple points across the human planet. Whatever they're preparing to fire, it's drawing power equivalent to our entire fleet. Before Zethkar could process this information, space itself seemed to ripple around the destroyer Death's Edge. The ship simply ceased. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone as if it had never existed. One moment it was there, the next there was nothing but empty space. What happened to the Death's Edge? Zethkar demanded. Unknown, Commander. All sensor data suggests it was simply removed from local space-time. No energy discharge, no debris field, nothing. The implications were staggering. The humans possessed technology that could manipulate reality itself. This wasn't just advanced weaponry, it was science that bordered on the impossible. All remaining ships, retreat to safe distance. Zethkar ordered, his pride finally overcome by survival instinct. But the human response came before his fleet could respond. Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge again, but this time it wasn't coming through their communication systems. Somehow, she was speaking directly into their minds. Commander Zethkar, you're beginning to understand. Your people have spent 3 millennia conquering civilizations that fight like you do. Organized, logical, predictable. We humans don't fight like that. We fight like cornered animals because that's what we've always been. The mental voice was accompanied by images that flooded into every Vorthack mind on every ship simultaneously. Scenes of human warfare throughout their history. Not the clean, efficient conquests of the Dominion, but brutal, chaotic conflicts where survival depended on pure savagery and desperate innovation. Zethkar saw humans fighting with primitive weapons against impossible odds and somehow winning through sheer bloody-minded determination. He witnessed battles where humans continued fighting even after sustaining injuries that would have killed most galactic species. He experienced the terrifying creativity humans applied to the art of destruction, developing new ways to kill with every conflict. We spent 10,000 years learning to kill each other. Admiral Chen's voice continued in his mind. We became so good at it that we nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. But each time we pulled back from the brink and learned new lessons about warfare, about survival, about what it takes to win against overwhelming odds. The images shifted to show human technological development. But instead of the gradual, linear progression typical of most species, human advancement came in explosive bursts driven by military necessity. They developed advanced metallurgy to make better weapons. They mastered nuclear physics to build bigger bombs. They created computers to calculate more efficient ways to destroy their enemies. Every human invention has been weaponized, the mental voice explained. Every discovery has been turned toward the art of war. When we finally achieved spaceflight, we didn't explore the galaxy looking for knowledge or peaceful contact. We looked up at the stars and wondered who else might try to conquer us. Zethkar realized with growing horror that the humans had been preparing for this exact encounter for centuries. Not for the Dominion specifically, but for any species that might attempt to subjugate them. Their entire technological development had been guided by a single, terrifying question. How do we kill anything that tries to kill us? The destroyer Blood Moon simply vanished like the Death's Edge, removed from existence by weapons technology that operated beyond Vorthak understanding. The remaining ships of his fleet found themselves unable to move, held in place by gravitational fields that made escape impossible. Your people conquer through superior firepower and numbers, Admiral Chen continued. You fight wars of position and attrition because that's what works against civilizations like yours. But we humans don't fight fair. We fight to win, regardless of the cost. We fight dirty, we fight smart, and we never, ever give up. The mental images now showed him Earth's true defensive capabilities. Weapons platforms hidden in asteroids throughout the solar system. Automated defense networks that have been watching and learning from every Dominion ship movement. Most terrifying of all, he saw human soldiers in powered armor that made Vorthak battle gear look like children's toys. "Commander," Korneth whispered, his voice breaking with fear, "what do we do?" Zethkar stared at the tactical display, watching his remaining ships held helpless in gravitational fields they couldn't break. For the first time in 3,000 years of Dominion expansion, a primitive species had not only defeated a subjugation fleet, but had done so with casual ease. The humans hadn't even shown him their full capabilities yet. Everything they had demonstrated was clearly defensive in nature, designed to protect Earth rather than project power. But the underlying message was clear. If you threaten us, we will remove you from existence with the same efficiency we once applied to removing each other. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "Full surrender. Request terms for withdrawal." As he gave the order, Zethkar couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these terrifying humans had prepared for anyone foolish enough to threaten their world. More importantly, he wondered if his surrender would even be accepted, or if Earth had already decided that the Dominion fleet posed too great a risk to allow any survivors. Admiral Chen's response to Zethkar's surrender came not as a transmission, but as a physical manifestation that defied every law of physics the Vorthak understood. One moment the bridge of the Void Reaper was filled with panicking officers. The next, Admiral Chen simply stood there, as solid and real as if she had always been present. Every weapon on the bridge swiveled toward her automatically, but she paid them no attention. Her gaze was fixed entirely on Zethkar, and in her eyes he saw something that made his blood freeze. She wasn't looking at him like an enemy commander. She was studying him like a specimen in a laboratory. "Commander Zethkar," she said calmly, seemingly unaware of the dozen plasma rifles aimed at her chest. "We need to talk." "Impossible, vertebrated." No organic being can survive matter transmission across vacuum. The energy requirements alone would. Admiral Chun turned to look at him with what might have been amusement. Subcommander Veldaz, age 47 standard cycles, veteran of campaigns on Corvex Prime and the Helix Nebula. You commanded the bombardment of the Zelani homeworld 12 years ago. Veldaz stepped backward, his mandibles clicking in distress. "How do you know that?" "Those records are classified beyond the highest Dominion security levels." "We know because we've been watching your empire for longer than you might imagine," Admiral Chen replied. "Did you really think a species as paranoid as humanity would develop faster than light communication without first using it to spy on every other technological civilization within range?" She moved to the central tactical display with the casual confidence of someone walking through her own ship. Her fingers passed through the holographic interface, somehow manipulating Dominion technology despite having no physical contact with the controls. "Your empire has been under constant surveillance for the past 2 centuries, she continued, calling up star charts that showed the extent of Vorthak territory. "We know about every world you've conquered, every species you've enslaved, every war crime your people have committed in the name of expansion." The star charts zoomed in to show individual planets, and Zethkar felt sick as he recognized former battlefields where he had personally led Dominion forces. Not only did the humans have detailed records of Vorthak military operations, but they had somehow obtained surveillance footage from the battles themselves. "The Yelvani of Kestos 4, Admiral Chin said, highlighting one system. "Beautiful creatures, weren't they? Crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic resonance. Your people thought their singing was primitive music. In reality, they were trying to surrender in 17 different languages simultaneously. The display showed horrific scenes of Dominion forces systematically destroying the Yelvani's crystal cities, their plasma weapons turning living art into molten slag. Zethkar remembered that campaign. He had been a younger officer then, eager to prove himself. The Yelvani had offered no resistance, which had only made the conquest easier. The Morvith Collective on Drakmor, she continued, moving to another system. A hive mind species that had achieved perfect social harmony. They had no concept of individual violence because they shared all emotions and experiences. Your arrival literally drove them insane as they experienced terror for the first time. More images flickered across the display. Peaceful species after peaceful species, all of them destroyed or enslaved by Dominion forces. Zethkar had never questioned these campaigns before. They were simply his duty as a Vorthak warrior. But seeing them through human eyes, watching the casual cruelty with which his people had treated less advanced civilizations, he felt something he had never experienced before. Shame. Why are you showing me this? He asked quietly. Admiral Chun turned to face him directly, and her expression softened slightly. Because, Commander, you're about to become part of something much larger than you realize. Your empire's expansion ends here, today. But what happens next depends entirely on choices your people make in the coming days. The tactical display shifted to show something that made every Vorthak on the bridge gasp in shock. The entire Dominion fleet, all 47 dreadnoughts, and their support vessels, hung motionless in space light years from Earth. They weren't moving because they couldn't move. Some invisible force had simply reached across interstellar space and stopped the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Your Eternal Council is currently in emergency session, Admiral Chun reported with the casual tone of someone reading weather reports. They're debating whether to send the remainder of your fleet to investigate why the Third Subjugation Fleet has gone silent. We're going to help them make the right decision. You're holding our entire military hostage, Zethkar stated, the implications finally sinking in. No, Commander. We're holding your entire military safe. There's an important difference. Before he could ask what she meant, new images appeared on the display. Ships like nothing Zethkar had ever seen began materializing around the Dominion fleet. They were enormous, dwarfing even the largest Vorthak dreadnoughts, and their design suggested technology centuries beyond anything the Dominion possessed. The human fleet, Admiral Chun explained unnecessarily. We've been building it for the past 300 years, ever since we first detected faster-than-light communications in this region of the galaxy. We knew someone would eventually find Earth, and we wanted to be ready. Impossible, connaît whispered. Our intelligence shows you only achieved spaceflight within the last century. Admiral Chen's smile was genuinely sad. Officer Korneth, your intelligence is based on what we wanted you to see. Did you really think a species paranoid enough to fight 40,000 wars against itself would develop space travel without immediately building warships? We've had faster-than-light capability for 4 centuries. We just kept it very, very quiet. The revelation hit Zethkar like a physical blow. Everything the Dominion knew about human technological development was wrong. They hadn't encountered a primitive species that had recently achieved spaceflight. They had found a civilization that had been watching and preparing for centuries, one that possessed technology so advanced it could reach across the galaxy and stop entire fleets without apparent effort. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We want the Dominion to stop," Admiral Chun replied simply. "No more conquest. No more enslavement. No more destruction of peaceful civilizations. Your empire's expansion ends today. And if we refuse..." The images on the tactical display shifted again, showing detailed schematics of every Dominion world, every military installation, every population center. The level of intelligence the humans possessed was staggering. They knew exactly where everything in the Vorthak Empire was located. Then, we will do to your empire what your empire has done to 17 other species, Admiral Chen said quietly. The difference is, we'll do it much more efficiently. Zethkar studied the star charts, trying to comprehend the scope of human intelligence gathering. They had mapped the entire Dominion in detail, identified every strategic target, and clearly possessed the technology to strike anywhere they chose. You could have destroyed us at any time, he realized. For the past 2 centuries, yes. But destruction isn't our goal, Commander. We've learned something from our 10,000 years of warfare that your people apparently haven't. Sometimes the greatest victory is the one that doesn't require fighting. She moved to another display panel, calling up images that showed the aftermath of Dominion conquests. But these weren't the sanitized reports Zethkar was used to seeing. These are the real consequences. Billions of beings living in slavery, their cultures destroyed, their worlds stripped of resources to feed the Dominion's endless expansion. Look at what you've built, Admiral Chen said softly. An empire built on the bones of peaceful civilizations. Worlds reduced to mining colonies. Entire species bred as slave labor. Is this really what you want your legacy to be? For the first time in his adult life, Zethkar questioned everything he had been taught about Vorthak's superiority and the divine right of conquest. Seeing the Dominion's actions through outside eyes, he couldn't help but wonder if his people had become the very monsters they claimed to be protecting the galaxy from. What alternative are you offering? He asked. Admiral Chen's expression brightened, and for the first time since her impossible arrival on his bridge, she looked genuinely hopeful. Peace, Commander. Real peace. Your people withdraw from all conquered territories. Former slaves are given the choice to return to their homeworlds or establish new lives within the Dominion. Your empire transitions from conquest to cooperation. And in return, humanity shares our technology. Medical advances that could extend Vorthak lifespans by centuries. Agricultural techniques that could turn barren worlds into gardens. Scientific knowledge that could advance your civilization by millennia. Zethkar stared at the offer, trying to find the trap. There had to be one. No species offered such generous terms without expecting something in return. Why? He asked finally. Why offer this to us? After seeing what we've done, why not simply destroy the Dominion and be done with it? Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of human warfare. Because, Commander, we humans know what it's like to be monsters. We've spent most of our existence killing each other, destroying everything beautiful we ever created, repeating the same mistakes over and over again. We know what it takes to change, to become something better than what you were. She gestured to the displays showing peaceful human cities, advanced technology used for creation rather than destruction, a civilization that had somehow managed to turn its talent for war into a force for protection rather than conquest. It took us 10,000 years to learn that strength isn't measured by who you can defeat, but by who you choose to protect. Your people are strong, Commander. Stronger than any species we've encountered. But strength without wisdom is just another form of weakness. Admiral Chen moved toward the center of the bridge, and every Vorthak stepped back involuntarily. Not from fear, but from the sudden realization that they were in the presence of something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. A predator that had chosen to become a protector. The choice is yours, Commander, she said, her voice echoing with finality. Evolution or extinction. Your people can choose to grow beyond their need to conquer, or they can choose to be remembered as another failed empire that destroyed itself through endless expansion. The bridge fell silent as Zethkar contemplated the most important decision in Vorthak history. Around him, his officers waited for orders that would determine not just their fate, but the fate of every being in the Dominion Empire. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Vorthak faced an enemy they couldn't defeat through superior firepower. They faced an enemy that offered something far more terrifying than destruction: the the chance to change everything they believed about themselves. The communication chamber deep within Vorthak Prime hummed with desperate energy as the Eternal Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in 3 millennia, the absolute rulers of the Dominion Empire faced a crisis they couldn't solve through military force. Grand Admiral Thexmorn, Supreme Commander of all Dominion forces, stood before the assembled council with reports that defied comprehension. "The entire Third Subjugation Fleet has surrendered," he announced, his voice heavy with disbelief. "All 47 ships of our primary battle group are being held by an unknown force that we cannot detect or counter." Council Prime Vex Thor, ancient beyond measure and architect of Dominion expansion policy, raised one of his 4 arms in a gesture of dismissal. "Impossible. No primitive species possesses technology capable of restraining Dominion battle groups. The humans' own transmissions show they have barely achieved basic spaceflight." "With respect, Council Prime," Thexmorn replied carefully, "our intelligence may have been incomplete. We have received a detailed communication from Commander Zethkar explaining the true nature of human capabilities." The chamber fell silent. Commander Zethkar was known throughout the Dominion as one of their most capable officers, a Vorthak who had personally led 17 successful planetary conquests. If he had surrendered, the situation was far more serious than anyone had imagined. "Show us," Vex Thor commanded. The communication began with Zethkar's image, but the commander who appeared on their screens bore little resemblance to the confident warrior they remembered. His eyes held something none of them had ever seen in a Vorthak before: genuine fear mixed with what looked like respect for an enemy. "Council Prime, honored members," Zethkar began, his voice steady despite the gravity of his words, "I am speaking to you from the bridge of a human vessel called Prometheus. I have been given permission to explain what we have encountered here, and I must stress that everything we believed about this species was wrong." The recording showed Zethkar standing on what was clearly an alien bridge, surrounded by technology that made Dominion systems look primitive. Human figures moved efficiently around him, operating equipment that seemed to respond to thought rather than physical manipulation. "The humans have been watching our empire for over 2 centuries, Zethkar continued. "They possess faster-than-light communication technology that makes our own systems seem crude in comparison. More importantly, they have weapons technology that can reach across interstellar distances to disable our ships without apparent energy expenditure." Council Prime Vex Thor leaned forward, his ancient eyes narrowing. "Show us proof of these claims." The recording shifted to show external views of the Dominion fleet. Every ship hung motionless in space, their engines dead, their weapons systems offline. Around them, human vessels of impossible size moved with predatory grace, their hulls gleaming with materials that seemed to absorb and redirect energy. "Our shields, our armor, our weapons systems," Zethkar explained, "all of it is useless against human technology. They didn't destroy our ships because they chose not to. They could have eliminated the entire fleet in seconds if they had wished." Grand Admiral Thexmorn studied the images with growing alarm. "How many ships do they possess?" "Unknown," Zethkar replied. "But our sensors detect construction facilities throughout their solar system capable of producing vessels larger than our dreadnoughts. Based on observed capabilities, they could construct a fleet larger than our entire navy within a matter of months." The implications were staggering. If the humans possessed industrial capability on such a scale, combined with superior technology, the Dominion faced an enemy capable of outbuilding and outfighting them simultaneously. "What are their demands?" Council Prime Vex Thor asked, his voice carefully controlled. Zethkar's expression grew even more serious. "They demand the immediate cessation of all Dominion expansion, complete withdrawal from all conquered territories, freedom for all enslaved species, and transformation of our empire from a military conquest state into what they call a cooperative civilization." The council chamber erupted in angry clicks and growls. The idea of abandoning their empire, releasing their slaves, and submitting to human demands was unthinkable. The Vortak had ruled through strength for 3,000 years. To show weakness now would be the end of their civilization as they knew it. Preposterous, Council member Zarnex declared. We are the Vortak. We do not submit to primitive species, regardless of their technological advantages. Order the reserve fleets to Earth immediately. Before Vexthor could respond, the Chamber's communication systems activated without authorization. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every display simultaneously, her expression calm but absolute. Council Prime Vexthor, she said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Please don't make us demonstrate why that would be a terrible mistake. The fact that she had penetrated their most secure communication systems, identified each council member personally, and done so from across the galaxy sent waves of shock through the assembled Vortak. Their most protected facility had been infiltrated as easily as if the humans had simply walked through the front door. How did you? Vexthor began. How did we access your secure systems? Admiral Chen interrupted. The same way we've been monitoring your empire for the past 2 centuries. Your quantum encryption is approximately 400 years behind our current capabilities. She gestured, and holographic displays materialized throughout the council chamber without any visible technological interface. The images showed detailed maps of every Dominion world, complete with resource assessments, population counts, and military installations. We know the location of every Vortak colony, Admiral Chen continued. Every mining operation, every slave breeding facility, every military shipyard. We have complete intelligence on your industrial capacity, your military strength, and your political structure. The displays shifted to show real-time surveillance footage from within Dominion territories. Council members watched in horror as human observation devices revealed the true scope of their knowledge. Not only did the humans know where everything was, but they had been watching Dominion operations in detail for decades. Your reserve fleets, Admiral Chen said with casual indifference, are currently experiencing the same technical difficulties as your 3rd subjugation fleet. They are unharmed, but completely immobilized. We thought it best to prevent any unfortunate misunderstandings. Grand Admiral Thex Morin checked his communication systems desperately, trying to reach the reserve commanders. Every fleet in the Dominion military had gone silent simultaneously. The humans had somehow reached across thousands of light years to disable the entire Vortak Navy in a matter of moments. This is impossible, Vexthor whispered. No species possesses such capabilities. No species you've encountered before, Admiral Chen corrected. But, then, you've only conquered peaceful civilizations. You've never faced a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare against opponents of equal intelligence and determination. The holographic displays now showed human military facilities hidden throughout their solar system and beyond. Weapons platforms that dwarfed Dominion battleships. Manufacturing centers that could produce war material on an industrial scale the Vortak had never imagined. Most terrifying of all, vast fleets of automated vessels that suggested the humans could fight a galactic war without risking a single organic life. We are prepared for 3 different scenarios, Admiral Chen explained with a matter-of-fact tone of someone discussing lunch plans. Scenario 1. You accept our terms and transform your empire peacefully. Scenario 2. You attempt military resistance and we dismantle your civilization systematically but humanely. Scenario 3. You refuse to change and we sterilize every Dominion world to prevent further expansion. The casual way she discussed genocide sent chills through every Vortak present. This wasn't the emotional threat of an angry enemy. This was the calm assessment of a species that had calculated the exact cost of various military options and found them all acceptable. You would commit genocide against our entire species? Vexthor asked, his voice barely controlled. Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly, and, for a moment, she looked genuinely sad. Council Prime, We humans have committed genocide against our own species more times than we care to remember. We know exactly what it costs and exactly what it accomplishes. We're offering you the chance to avoid that fate." She gestured again, and the display showed something that struck the council speechless. Human cities of impossible beauty, technology used to heal rather than destroy, a civilization that had somehow turned its talent for war into the foundation for unprecedented peace. "This is what we built after we learned to stop killing each other," Admiral Chen explained. "Art beyond imagination, science that borders on magic, lifespans measured in millennia rather than decades. We're offering to share all of this with you. In exchange for our surrender," Vex Thor stated. "In exchange for your evolution," she corrected. "The Vorthak are strong, intelligent, and capable. You could become one of the greatest civilizations in galactic history. But only if you choose to grow beyond your need to conquer others." The chamber fell silent as each council member contemplated the choice before them. Surrender everything they had built and accept an uncertain future under human guidance, or face military defeat against an enemy that possessed overwhelming technological superiority. "How do we know you won't simply destroy us once we've disarmed?" Council member Drac Von asked. Admiral Chen's smile was genuine and, somehow, reassuring. "Because if we wanted you destroyed, Counselor Drac Von, you would already be gone. We're having this conversation because we believe your people can change." She paused, and her expression grew more serious. "But understand this, we will only make this offer once. Choose quickly, because while we're talking, 17 enslaved species across your empire are watching to see whether the galaxy's most feared predators can become something better." The communication ended, leaving the Eternal Council in stunned silence. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Vorthak faced a choice that would determine not just their immediate survival, but the very nature of what their civilization would become. In the depths of space, human vessels waited patiently for their answer, while across the galaxy, enslaved populations held their breath and wondered if freedom was finally possible. 5 years had passed since the day the Vorthak Dominion chose evolution over extinction. Commander Zethkar, now bearing the title of Cultural Integration Liaison, stood on the observation deck of the joint Human Vorthak Research Station Harmony and marveled at how much had changed. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, he watched something that would have been impossible to imagine during his military career. Vorthak engineers worked alongside human scientists to construct what would become the galaxy's first truly cooperative space habitat. Former slave species contributed their own unique technologies and perspectives, creating something no single civilization could have achieved alone. "Still having trouble believing it's real?" Admiral Chun asked, joining him at the viewport. The human leader looked exactly the same as she had 5 years ago, a reminder that their medical technology was just as advanced as their weapon systems. "Every day," Zethkar admitted. "My people were warriors for 3 millennia. The idea that we could become something else seemed impossible. The hardest battles are always the ones we fight against ourselves," Admiral Chen replied. "Your people have shown remarkable adaptability once they understood the alternative." The transformation hadn't been easy. The first year had been particularly difficult as Vorthak society struggled to redefine itself without conquest as its driving purpose. There had been resistance from military factions who refused to believe that surrender could lead to anything but destruction. Some colonies had attempted to maintain their old ways, requiring human intervention to protect former slave populations. But gradually, something remarkable had emerged. Freed from the constant need to maintain military superiority, Vorthak society had begun to rediscover aspects of their culture that had been suppressed for centuries. Art, philosophy, scientific exploration for its own sake rather than military application. They had remembered how to be more than just conquerors. "The Morvith report is particularly encouraging," Admiral Chen continued, handling him a data tablet. "Their collective consciousness is healing faster than we projected." Zethkar studied the report with growing amazement. The Morvith Collective, the hive mind species as people had nearly driven insane through conquest, had not only recovered but had become one of the strongest advocates for galactic cooperation. Their ability to share experiences and emotions directly had proven invaluable in helping other species overcome the trauma of Dominion rule. They forgave us, he said quietly. After everything we did to them, they forgave us. Forgiveness isn't always about forgetting, Admiral Chin replied. Sometimes it's about choosing to build something better than what came before. The research station bustled with activity around them. Zalani crystalline architects worked with Yelvani harmonic engineers to design structures that were simultaneously functional and beautiful. Human psychologists collaborated with Vorthak behavioral specialists to develop rehabilitation programs for species affected by slavery. Former Dominion soldiers trained alongside human peacekeepers to become protectors rather than conquerors. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if we had chosen differently, Zethkar mused. Admiral Chan was quiet for a moment, her expression growing distant. We ran computer simulations of that scenario. Complete sterilization of all Vorthak territories would have taken approximately 6 months. The refugee crisis from displaced populations would have destabilized the entire galactic arm. You really would have done it. Yes, she said simply. But we're very glad we didn't have to. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. The holographic projector activated to show an image that filled Zethkar with pride. His former subcommander Veldaz appeared, but instead of military uniform, he wore the robes of a cultural exchange ambassador. Commander Zethkar, Veldaz said with genuine enthusiasm, I have remarkable news from the Korvex system. The former mining colonies have voted to establish a joint council with Vorthak settlers. They're calling it the Korvex Cooperative. Elected governance, Admiral Chin noted with approval. Your people are learning fast. The transformation of former Dominion territories had been one of the most challenging aspects of the peace agreement. Entire worlds have been strip-mined for resources, their native populations enslaved or relocated. But with human technology and Vorthak engineering capabilities, these worlds were being restored to something even better than their original state. The agricultural yields are exceeding all projections, Veldaz continued. Human bioreconstruction techniques, combined with Vorthak terraforming knowledge, have turned Korvex Prime into one of the most fertile worlds in the sector. And the population integration? Zethkar asked. Better than we hoped. The younger Vorthak especially are embracing cooperative principles. They're actually excited about building something together rather than taking it from someone else. It was true. The generation of Vorthak born after the transformation, as historians were already calling it, showed little interest in conquest or domination. They had grown up in a society where strength was measured by what you could create rather than what you could destroy. There's something else, Veldaz added, his expression growing more serious. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected another expansionist empire about 200 light-years from human space. The Krex hegemony. They're following the same patterns the Dominion used to use. Admiral Chin nodded grimly. We've been tracking them for several months. They're currently subjugating a peaceful species called the Dendrians. Zethkar felt a familiar anger, but it was different now. Instead of the rage of a warrior denied conquest, it was the protective fury of someone watching innocence being threatened. What are we going to do about it? He asked. Admiral Chin smiled. That's an interesting choice of words. The Galactic Cooperation Council agreed that threats to peaceful species would be met with joint response, Zethkar replied. The Krex hegemony is exactly the kind of threat we were designed to counter. The Galactic Cooperation Council had been humanity's greatest gift to the transformed galaxy. Rather than human dominance replacing Vorthak dominance, they had created a truly democratic system where every species had an equal voice in galactic affairs. It was messy, sometimes inefficient, but it was fair in a way no galactic government had ever been before. The Council fleet is already being assembled, Admiral Chin confirmed. Vorthak strategic knowledge, human technology, Morvith communications coordination, Yelvani engineering support. It'll be the first truly cooperative military action in galactic history. And if the Kreks refuse our terms? Admiral Chin's expression hardened, and for a moment Zeth Kar saw the predator that had terrified him 5 years ago. Then, they'll learn the same lesson you did. The galaxy has moved beyond conquest as a solution to political problems. 3 weeks later, Zeth Kar stood on the bridge of the New Harmony, flagship of the Galactic Cooperation Fleet. Around him, beings from 17 different species worked together with an efficiency that would have been impossible before the transformation. Human tactical expertise, Vorthack strategic planning, and technologies from dozens of former Dominion species created a military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Kreks hegemony fleet that met them was impressive by old standards. 200 warships arranged in the classic cone formation that had served expansionist empires for millennia. But compared to the Cooperation fleet, they looked like ancient relics. Krek's commander is demanding our immediate withdrawal, the Morvith Communications specialist reported. Standard dominance protocols. Open a channel, Zeth Kar ordered. As the operations senior strategic coordinator, he had been given the honor of first contact. The Krek's admiral who appeared on screen was a massive insectoid being with compound eyes that reflected absolute confidence. I am Hive Admiral ZYXKTH of the Krek's hegemony. You will withdraw from this system immediately or be destroyed. Admiral ZYXKTH, Zeth Kar replied calmly. I am Commander Zeth Kar of the Galactic Cooperation Council. We are here to offer you the same choice that was offered to my people 5 years ago. Evolution or extinction. The Krek's admiral's mandibles clicked in what was probably laughter. You threaten us with a fleet of different species who can barely communicate with each other? Our swarm tactics will destroy you in minutes. Admiral, Zeth Kar said with genuine sadness. You're making the same mistake I made. You're assuming we fight like you do. What happened next became known as the Krek's Awakening. The Cooperation fleet didn't attack the hegemony ships. Instead, they simply stopped them. 200 warships found themselves unable to move, their weapons systems offline, their communications systems broadcasting human messages about the benefits of galactic cooperation. Ow! Admiral ZYXKTH demanded, his compound eyes reflecting genuine fear for the first time. Because we learned something your people haven't discovered yet, Zeth Kar explained. When you stop fighting each other and start working together, you become capable of things no single species ever imagined. The Krek's hegemony surrendered within hours. Like the Vorthack before them, they found themselves facing an enemy that possessed overwhelming technological superiority combined with a moral authority that came from offering genuine alternatives to conquest. 6 months later, former Krek's territories were undergoing the same transformation that had revolutionized Dominion space. Slave species were being freed and offered choices about their futures. Krek society was slowly learning that strength could be measured by protection rather than predation. Standing again on the observation deck of the Harmony, Zeth Kar watched human and Vorthack children playing together in the station's garden areas. They showed no awareness that their species had once been enemies. For them, cooperation was natural, conflict was primitive. Do you ever regret it? Admiral Chin asked, joining him as she often did during his contemplative moments. The surrender? The change. Your people were warriors for 3,000 years. Now you're teachers, engineers, explorers. Do you ever miss the simplicity of conquest? Zeth Kar considered the question seriously. There had been something appealing about the old ways. Clear objectives, defined enemies, simple solutions. But looking at the galaxy they were building together, he realized the answer was easy. No, he said quietly. Warriors destroy things. What we're doing now is so much harder and so much more important. We're creating something that will outlast any empire. Admiral Chin smiled. The galaxy is becoming something beautiful, isn't it? Through the viewport, they watched ships from dozens of species working together to build exploration vessels destined for the galactic rim. Not conquest fleets or resource extraction platforms, but ships designed to find new life and offer it the same choice that had transformed their own civilizations. The humans showed us something we never understood, Zethkar continued. True strength isn't about who you can defeat. It's about who you can inspire to become something better than they were. In the depths of space, the galaxy continued its ancient rotation. But for the first time in millions of years, the dominant force shaping its future wasn't conquest or exploitation. It was cooperation, born from the simple recognition that the greatest victories were the ones that left everyone stronger than before. The terror the cosmos had never known wasn't human weapons or technology. It was human compassion, backed by the absolute determination to create a universe where every species had the chance to become the best version of itself. And across the galaxy, former enemies worked side by side to build something that would have been impossible for any of them alone. A future worth believing in.